Some countries are so spiritually dark that demonic influence feels almost tangible. Today, we'll reveal 9 nations Christians should be cautious about visiting or living in. Stay until the end. The last one is the most unexpected and dangerous of all. In our world, there exist places of profound cultural richness and human resilience, yet some bear deep, unseen wounds within their very spiritual foundations. Consider Haiti, a nation born from a heroic struggle for freedom. This momentous beginning is historically linked to a Vodou ceremony at Bois Caiman, a ritual many believe forged a pact with spiritual entities to secure their liberation from colonial oppression. From this pivotal moment, the spiritual landscape of Haiti has been a theater of intense conflict. Vodou, far from being a collection of quaint folktales, is a vibrant and active system involving the invocation of spirits, the veneration of ancestors, and the phenomenon of spiritual possession. It is deeply interwoven into the fabric of daily existence for many, its symbols often merging with those of Catholicism, yet reinterpreting them in ways that can be spiritually perilous. When a traveler, particularly one of Christian faith, steps onto this soil, they are not merely a tourist, they are an active participant on contested ground. There are numerous accounts from missionaries and spiritual workers who have returned from even brief visits feeling utterly depleted, both physically and spiritually. This profound exhaustion is not a judgment on the Haitian people, but a testament to an overwhelming spiritual oppression that permeates the environment, a consequence of ancient gateways being thrown open and never fully sealed. Further across the globe, India presents a dazzling tapestry of spiritual wisdom, vibrant colors, and ancient sacred traditions that has captivated seekers for millennia. However, behind this enchanting exterior lies an intricate pantheon of millions of deities. While some of these traditions offer profound philosophical insights, many involve the worship of idols and spirits that demand fear, blood, or devotion through endless ritualistic cycles. The Apostle Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, cautioned that sacrifices made to idols are, in essence, offerings to demonic forces, not to God, and he strongly warned against participation in such practices. In numerous Indian cities, this is not an abstract concept, but a visible reality, with idols adorning nearly every street corner. Devotees engage in public acts of worship directed towards a multitude of gods, creating a powerful spiritual atmosphere. These acts are believed to summon supernatural power, but from a Christian perspective, this power originates not from a divine source, but from entities that mimic divine light. An unsuspecting visitor to these regions might find themselves plagued by unsettling nightmares, a disorienting mental fog, or a sudden, overwhelming sense of dread. This is not a sign of personal weakness, but a reaction to entering a territory where darkness, through centuries of invitation and worship, has established a significant and legal claim. Travel to the heart of South America and you will find Brazil, a nation whose coastal regions and Amazonian basin are vibrant centers of syncretic spirituality. Here, practices such as Umbanda and Candomblé, along with elements of Macumba, create a potent blend of African spirit worship, Catholic sainthood, and indigenous shamanic rituals. These belief systems are not abstract. They openly invoke spirits, inviting them to inhabit human vessels during ceremonies filled with trance-inducing dance and elaborate offerings. The visual and emotional appeal of these rituals can be deeply seductive, but they often represent what many consider counterfeit manifestations, mimicking the divine gifts of the Holy Spirit. They may offer promises of healing, prophecies, and blessings, but these often come at the steep price of spiritual bondage. The spiritual atmosphere in Brazil undergoes a palpable shift during massive celebrations like Carnival, a time when many believe the veils between worlds become thin. During these periods, there is a documented increase in acts of lust and violence, and instances of overt demonic possession become more common. For believers, these times demand heightened vigilance and discernment. For some, the wisest course of action is to avoid these environments altogether. The glamorous facade often conceals a grave spiritual danger, reminding us of the timeless truth that in the universe there is no truly neutral ground. In Southeast Asia, Thailand is renowned for its welcoming hospitality and breathtaking beauty. Yet, intertwined with this gentle culture is a profound and pervasive reverence for a vast array of spirits, both benevolent and malevolent. A common sight outside almost every home and business is the spirit house, an ornate shrine built not for decoration, but to appease local ghosts, demons, and nature spirits. These are functional spiritual contracts, and every offering of incense, food, or flowers is a direct act of participation in a form of idolatry. Walking through the bustling streets of Bangkok, one can often feel a tangible density in the air, a spiritual heaviness that seems to press down upon the chest. Thai culture openly embraces spirit mediums, celebrates elaborate ghost festivals, and engages in rituals designed to communicate with the deceased. Practices that are biblically identified as necromancy and are strictly forbidden. A Christian traveler wandering unaware through these spiritual hotspots can become susceptible to spiritual attack, particularly if their faith is not strong and their spiritual armor is neglected. The presiding spirits in these lands are ancient and discerning. They can sense spiritual apathy with the same keenness that a wolf smells blood in the air, making it a place that demands constant spiritual awareness. The vast and complex nation of Nigeria stands as a profound paradox, a land of both earth-shaking Christian revival and deeply entrenched, terrifying darkness. On one hand, it is home to some of the most fervent and powerful Christian prayer movements in the world. On the other, it remains a territory where deep-rooted witchcraft, occultic rituals, and binding juju covenants hold entire communities in a state of spiritual captivity. In certain regions, horrific practices such as ritual killings and the operation of powerful secret societies continue to exist in the shadows, their influence still very active and hungry for power. A particularly insidious danger lies within some religious institutions where the name of Jesus is invoked, yet is blended with practices of fear, manipulation, and even curses. It is a stark reminder that not every place bearing the symbol of the cross is a sanctuary of holiness. Malevolent spirits are masters of deception and can easily wear Christian attire to mislead the unwary. To travel to Nigeria without keen spiritual discernment is to risk wandering into a raging war zone without any form of defense. Countless believers have returned from the nation feeling spiritually battered and bruised, a direct result of underestimating the potent and invisible forces that are constantly at play in the land. Often overlooked on the world stage, the remote island nation of Papua New Guinea is a place of extreme spiritual volatility. The conflicts here are not merely physical battles between tribes, they are deeply spiritual wars. Many tribal groups continue to engage in ancestor worship, and the nation has a history of ritual cannibalism and sorcery that still echoes in its spiritual atmosphere. There are well-documented cases of powerful demonic manifestations that have thrown entire villages into a state of terror. Christian missionaries who have worked in the region frequently report encountering a level of spiritual resistance that is almost palpable. This opposition is not from the people themselves, who are often warm and receptive, but from the ancient spiritual strongholds that have bound the land for centuries. It has been observed that the moment the gospel is preached with power, the darkness retaliates with ferocity. While the light of Christianity is making significant inroads in Papua New Guinea, many areas remain enveloped in thick spiritual shadows. In these places where the light has not yet fully penetrated, one must tread with extreme caution. It is a land that exemplifies the principle, do not go unless you are unequivocally sent by a higher calling. Japan, with its outward appearance of modernity, serene order, and discipline, presents a different kind of spiritual challenge. Spiritually, it is a nation veiled in ancestral bondage and a pervasive culture of spiritual emptiness. The dominant belief systems of Shintoism and Buddhism, combined with a powerful national spirit of silent suppression, create a unique spiritual landscape. This undercurrent of despair is reflected in the country's tragically high suicide rates, which are often attributed not to material poverty, but to a profound spiritual desolation. The land is filled with shrines dedicated to the spirits of the dead, or kami, and altars to ancestors are a fixture in many homes. While these practices are born of honor and respect, they also contribute to a deep spiritual silence and a subtle but strong resistance to the Christian faith. An unseen heaviness can often be felt, a spiritual fog that clings to the landscape. Christians who come to minister in this land often speak of feeling invisible, of their message struggling to take root. Church growth is painstakingly slow, and conversions are often won through intense spiritual struggle. This is not due to a lack of effort, but because the spiritual soil has been compacted and hardened by centuries of quiet, deeply ingrained idolatry, making it a challenging but crucial frontier for the light. In the heart of Africa, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is a land of staggering natural beauty, juxtaposed with a history of immense bloodshed. Decades of brutal civil war, unspeakable mass atrocities, and the horror of child soldiers have spiritually ripped the land open. It is a spiritual principle that where innocent blood is shed in great quantities, demonic forces gather and claim territory. This spiritual turmoil manifests in horrifying ways. In some regions of the Congo, a pervasive and deeply demonic confusion has taken root, leading to children being accused of witchcraft. These innocent victims are often exiled from their families, brutally beaten, and forced into false confessions. The influence of witch doctors, spirit healers, and tribal rituals that involve demonic invocation continues to hold sway over vast segments of the population. Christians who venture into the Congo without a shield of prayer and discernment face a relentless spiritual onslaught. They report experiencing contamination, confusion, and terrifying nightmares as the aggressive darkness of the region actively resists the light they carry. Yet it is also a land of incredible potential, where the light, when it is allowed to break through, shines with an even greater brilliance against the profound darkness. Nestled majestically in the Himalayas, Nepal is a nation steeped in spirituality, but from a Christian viewpoint, much of this spiritual energy is directed away from God. The worship of idols, mountains, serpents, and even the practice of widespread animal sacrifice are deeply woven into the cultural and religious fabric. The streets and hillsides are dotted with temples dedicated to destructive deities, and the air often echoes with rituals involving blood, fire, and mystical chanting. The Kathmandu Valley, in particular, is considered to be a place of intense spiritual activity, a nexus of these powerful forces. While many areas have never been reached with the gospel message, others actively and aggressively resist it. Travelers and spiritual seekers flock to its majestic peaks to find themselves, but many descend from the mountains spiritually altered in a negative way, feeling haunted, confused, or as if they have been spiritually cracked open and left vulnerable. It is a land that forces one to believe in the reality of the spiritual realm, not to incite fear, but to underscore the absolute necessity of approaching it with fierce prayer and with one's spiritual eyes wide open to the unseen realities that govern the region. You might be tempted to dismiss these warnings thinking, "I'm just a tourist, a traveler passing through for work or sightseeing. I have no intention of getting involved in any of these practices." It is crucial to understand this. In the realm of the spirit, there are no tourists. You are either under the protection of heaven or you are a target for the forces of hell. When you, as a believer carrying the light of Christ, set foot in a region saturated with the spiritual residue of blood covenants, generational idolatry, and deep-seated witchcraft, your very presence is a disruption and a threat to the territorial spirits that rule there. You carry an inherent light, and that light simply cannot go unnoticed in a domain of darkness. This is precisely why, when visiting these nations, you might experience unsettling phenomena even without directly participating in any local rituals. You may be assailed by strange dreams, fall victim to sudden and unexplainable illnesses, suffer from mental confusion and depression, or feel an overwhelming spiritual and physical fatigue that no amount of rest can cure. These are not mere coincidences or the effects of jet lag. They are spiritual reactions to your presence, the invisible friction created when light and darkness collide. This knowledge is not meant to instill fear in your heart, but to prepare you, to arm you with the awareness you need to navigate these territories safely. Let it be unequivocally clear that this discourse is not a judgment upon any culture, people, or nation. God's love extends to every corner of the earth, and the sacrifice of Jesus is sufficient for every tribe, every tongue, and every people. However, the principalities and spiritual powers that exert influence over certain regions do not share this universal love. They are experts at manipulating cultures, twisting acts of worship into idolatry, hijacking ancient traditions for their own dark purposes, and waging a relentless war against the advancement of the gospel. Therefore, exercising spiritual discernment is not the same as harboring prejudice. Prejudice unfairly judges people, while discernment keenly perceives the spiritual dynamics operating behind the visible curtain of everyday life. You must never mistake a kind demeanor or a welcoming culture for spiritual neutrality. It is entirely possible to love the people of a nation profoundly while simultaneously resisting and refusing to engage with the spirits that dominate their land. You can share their food, learn their language, and graciously accept their hospitality, but you must never bow to their idols, never participate in invoking their gods, and never open your spirit to the charms and chants that carry invisible spiritual hooks. True compassion involves not only loving the people, but also refusing to compromise with the darkness that seeks to enslave them.